Welcome to Dad's XP, the show where we review video games and give you the dad's perspective on what we would rank them. My name is Paul Irizarry, and today I'll be reviewing Alan Wake 2 on the PlayStation 5. If you enjoy these videos, make sure to like and subscribe to the channel for more content. We're not provided these games for review ahead of time. We go out and purchase them with our own money. So again, these reviews tend to be a little bit more authentic than what you would get around there. But let's go ahead and break Alan Wake 2 because again, this game is difficult to explain. It's unique enough to defer itself from any comparison. It is like a survival horror and like a psychological thriller, if you will. But I do recommend you don't play around children. I'm going to go ahead and make this review like off the scripts. I'm kind of just going to go off on a not on a tangent, but I'm just going to kind of just talk about the game, right? I'm not going to read a script and break down piece by piece. I'm just going to kind of explain the game to you and see if you kind of like it. Because again, I do feel for a dad's point of view, this game really isn't for everyone, but it is very much so story-wise, I guess, something I think a majority of us would appreciate to play through. So I'll go right into it. The average story for this game is about 17-ish hours. The biggest gripe I have with I guess the story, if you will, is more so the dialogue. If you've played any video game like the PS3 era, and it goes to show because Alan Wake 1 obviously was from that era. It was for Xbox 360. But the dialogue for me in some points is like very last gen humor or prior to last gen humor, and it's also very outdated. So there's a lot of times where it was very cringe, where characters would say something and hey, there's a page here, and I'm like, no way, really. So it's very obvious, overstating the obvious. But aside from that, the story is really good. I do like the approach here with the story. I don't want to spoil anything either, but you play as two characters. You're Saga, and you also at times play as Alan Wake. And it's interesting to see how both of these, perspectives cross and intertwine, right? So that is a very nice approach, and I do like the elements on playing on both sides, right? As you play through the game, you're going to see as the FBI agent Saga, you're going to try to unravel the mystery of some murders that have been taking place, but at the same time you have Alan Wake, who's writing the story, and none of this is spoilers, but he's writing the story and changing things up as you're playing with Saga, which is very interesting and twisted. So again, that right there kind of hooks you in. But again, coming from that dad's perspective, there are a lot of times where I found myself, and I don't mean this in a disrespectful way, but just because of the nature of the time where I was playing the game, I was falling asleep. But then, trigger the jump scare and I'm back on my feet, but also kind of lost because I don't know what I was doing in the woods for a second there. But again, that's totally on a parent's side point of view, right? Like, it's not applicable to anyone at all. You should be playing this game when you're kind of awake. But aside from that, on my end, which again, I would summarize as extended periods, at least at the beginning, extended periods walking through the woods with no real proper sense of direction, unless if you're like super hyper focused on it. But again, that's not a negative to the tier from the review. It's just a little point to kind of put there. And we do that a lot with our reviews. We kind of point things that could potentially be better for accessibility. At the beginning, I didn't necessarily know have an indicator, like a marker of where to go. That's the I guess the general issue I had at the beginning of the game. It gets real, like it doesn't even matter later in the game. You kind of get used to everything that's laid out for you. But talking about graphics and sound, the game is beautiful. Like, the environments are great. The lighting is great. So the environments definitely stuck with me the most. The lighting was really great. Whenever it's like raining and like the water, it also looks very, very beautiful. But when you also get to the like twisted approach, like I guess the supernatural, really, if you will, it's just, it comes together very nicely, and I really do enjoy this game. The cutscenes are brilliant too. Again, this game is just very, very beautiful, really, when you're playing through it. As I guess there's not many, I guess, survival horror games. And again, this game kind of fits two different classifications, of course, but it look this way and it works so well. So I think that's a very strong suit for it. In terms of like sound, again, you're going to have a bunch of jump scares, a bunch of like, I guess, what's the word I'm looking for? Surreal sounds in the background, and they're all playing perfectly well. And it kind of gets you into the mood of what's going on in this world. So I think, that those graphics and sound, definitely the strong points for me, along with that story. Now, for gameplay and controls, it's very similar to the original Alan Wake. If you haven't played that, I do recommend you play it. You do have some of those mechanics where you're using light to kind of solve puzzles, and you're using light to kind of fight off enemies and whatnot, and you're doing a lot of dodging. You do have like a unlimited sprint, I noticed this time around, so you can kind of run further and not have an issue. But I did notice that for me, it kind of felt more refined compared to the first. So I feel like it was a better experience. I just don't know if I'm personally a fan of the light mechanics per se, because I didn't like them too much in the first game. And here in the second one, they're better, and I feel indifferent to light mechanics in this game. It's like one of the mechanics that I never really thought personally that, would come up with really, but they play well. They play very well, and I think they're a strong point of the game. Obviously the majority of the game, but again, I don't feel any certain way towards that light mechanics. It's just there, if you will, but they are refined, if that makes any sort of sense. Hopefully it does, because again, this game does come 14 years after the original. Now, for replayability, I would say it varies. It depends totally upon you. If you're a completionist, you'll probably play a little bit more than other people. But if you're just trying to play through the story, I think you'll just get your feet in with the story, finish it, and call it a day. I want to go back to the controls real quick and the gameplay. It's just some of the puzzles are really nice. The one thing I do want to talk about is the mind room, if you will. I think that's what it's called, where you kind of solve the case that you're kind of building up and all that. Very interesting. I didn't really care much for it, honestly. That's another negative that I kind of don't really like going into the case room. I know, and as you play the game, you'll kind of see the implications of that and everything. Again, no spoilers, but personally, didn't really like that either. But again, I don't want these negative points to seem like I'm deterring or taking anything away from the game. I see where the game's going. It's just not for me, and I hopefully that I guess presents itself properly in this video, because I think while a lot of people might like this game, it does vary. That mileage is going to vary, right? So for me, not totally the best experience. A really great game, right? But not the best of the year in a year that's been so overly crowded with great games. Again, I think if this game came out next year or last year, for example, aside from this year specifically, this would be up there at the very, very top. But we've had so many games. And again, I don't want that to necessarily deter the review. So again, just kind of giving you a roundabout of why I may be sounding a little bit negative, but it is not deterring the game at all. Trying to be a little bit critical of it as a dad's perspective. We do spend a lot of money and a lot of time on other things, and I don't know if under normal circumstances I would have had enough time to play through this game. That's the point I guess I really want to make here. And again, we're not using a script here. So going back to the review for Alan Wake here, again, graphically looks impressive. Story is great. Sound is magnificent. Gameplay and controls is pretty much the same but refined. And then replayability totally depends on you. So with that being said, Alan Wake is going to receive a score of 8.5 out of 10. And is it a must play? Well, if you're into survival games, yes, you should probably pick it up. It's a really great pickup. Until next time, my name has been Irizarry with Dad's XP. Take it easy. Bye-bye.